Welcome to Paradigms and part 2 of our episode featuring Loreena McKennitt. Now here is the next part of my conversation with Loreena. When life causes me to feel despair or hopeless, which happens at times, I think, to everyone, but it certainly happens to me, what I find myself doing is moving out with my awareness. I guess most people call it up, but I think of it as out from the planet and out into the cosmos and looking at the whole thing.
Yes.
And while it's more than I can really perceive, I can get a glimpse of the bigness of it all, which says to me that these changes are fine.
Yeah.
It's not scary.
I keep reminding myself of all these civilizations where life and death is in front of people all the time. I mean, I was to, places in India and other places where it's just stitched in. You're not far from death. You're not far from being reminded of your own mortality. So that, for me, is not the biggest thing. I do believe still that moral and ethical progress or health is important, and I want to be engaged in that. And I realize from a physical standpoint how little I actually need, but of the things that I really need, that I would say fall in the must-have column, are family, they're friends, it's community, and that provides a great deal of sustenance. And it's when I feel those connections are compromised that I get pretty anxious. I get pretty concerned. And I think that's what's happening there. Like, there's a realm in my brain. I think that the alarm bells are just on permanently with respect to the unfettered connection technologies and what it's doing to people. But I also know that there are a number of people who, it's kind of like a rising nausea. I think that there are a lot of people that have yet to identify themselves with each other, but who are aware and concerned and are looking for opportunities to speak up and make changes.
Billions, I think, literally.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, one of the things that these technologies allow us to do is to be exposed, and I would even say to be overexposed, to ideologies and to each other's distress in ways that are not always healthy for us.
No.
And the rise in the preeminence of ideology seems to me to be a great, massive human ego trip that just, we get so wrapped up in what we believe to be so that we stop paying attention to what is actually occurring in front of us.
Yes, true.
And it's a problem.
It is a problem, I agree. Oh, for sure.
Oh, my gosh.
It reminds me of that comic book, It's a Mad, Bad World.
Yes, I remember that. Oh, my gosh. Wow. Well, this is all very interesting and heady, and I'm sure listeners are going, what are these two talking about? But I really appreciate that an artist, and I mostly interview artists, although not exclusively, and what everyone tells me, really what you just said, that one of the key things that inspires them and one of the most important pieces of being in the mode of their art is that it makes connections. It brings people together.
Yes.
When you do a performance, which is the ultimate in this, I think, what happens in the room? I mean, I know it's different every time, but what's the magic?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me, and maybe it's not even my place to say. I don't know. I know how things feel on the most part from my side of the fence, and I think this speaks to the oddball way that I came into this career, because I always wanted to be a veterinarian, and if not that, then I wanted to work in wildlife conservation or forestry. And when I sort of slipped into this career path just slipped into this career path, I kind of had to do it on my own terms. I knew what I didn't want, and so when I come to the stage, it's kind of the excitement of, and I often compare it to being at home and making a dinner of many courses for friends, and you try to refine the recipe and you make sure the execution is great, and then you bring, friends come over for dinner, and you sit around and say, well, I've made this appetizer. I'd really like to share with you, and I hope you like it, and if not, I really want to know what doesn't work for you, etc. So it's the fun and thrill of being able to share something that is with the history and the research that I do, particularly as I follow the history of the Celts. Not only have I found it as a very gratifying way to compensate for the fact that I never did go back to university and don't really have any accreditation past my grade 12, it's that thrill of sharing what you're learning and discovering with other people, and then sharing also some of the questions that arise out of that and trying to bring some contemporary relevance from those aspects of history forward. And I think this also speaks to that I'm in my own self, not an extrovert. I'm rather, many would say, a shy person. So to get up on a stage in front of a whole bunch of people is a counterintuitive thing. And the way I've been able to broker that and not get devastated by stage fright is adopt a paradigm where I'm going to get on the stage and I'm going to share these songs with friends. And that's how it is. And so I chat away to folks like I'm chatting away to friends. And, that's pretty much it.
That's a wonderful way to look at it. And you're the first person I've interviewed who's said anything like that.
Uh-huh.
So I think there's a bit of uniqueness to that. That's very cool.
Speaks to my veterinarian
yes.
aspirations.
We'll be back with the final part of my conversation with Loreena McKennitt after we hear this piece of music from her 2006 album, An Ancient Muse. This one's called The Gates of Istanbul. Loreena McKennitt with The Gates of Istanbul from her album An Ancient Muse. And now here's the final part of my conversation with Loreena McKennitt. You're listening to Paradigms. I know since you travel it might be difficult, but do you live with animals?
Yes, I've got animals around me. I'm kind of even sensitive to calling them pets, but yes, I've got a dog and a couple of cats. I live on a farm. A couple of farmers have some of their livestock on the property, so I watch all of that and learn from it and try to,
And your animal friends, because I don't use that word, the P word, either. It seems disrespectful somehow. But your animal friends, okay, I live with a dog. I live with 3 dogs, only one of whom lives with me full time. The other 2 live with my neighbors I live on some land with. And what I find the most powerful thing is making eye contact with them.
Oh, yes.
And that the communication that occurs, how deep it is and how really special it is.
Yes, it's so fascinating because, I'm aware that there are different brain capacities for each species, and they're built along their own senses, and where you have dogs with an acute sense of smell or, and so their brains are shaped largely from their senses and their sensing. But it is interesting I played, so there's cows by the barn and they're out in the pen these days and they're all calving, and I love to go out there and just look at the cows, and I look at them in a way to see, well, will they get engaged looking back at me? And they seem to be perhaps more intrigued, maybe less from an eyesight standpoint, but who knows, maybe from a smell or that they just seeing a person standing there watching and quietly. I do the same kind of thing with the dog, but now she's much more. She can really latch on to my instinct. But yeah, it is a fascinating thing to find those strands of communication.
Oh, it's amazing. I have some friends who are dairy farmers in Vermont, and one time it was the fall equinox, and I went to visit, and we were going to celebrate the equinox, and one of their cows had gotten stuck in some mud, and we went out, and it was evening, and it was moonrise, and it was equinox. And the cows behaved differently than I've ever seen them before or since. They were so engaging, and they were their nose in my face, and they were really relating, and usually they're not like that. They're kind of just hanging out in the field eating grass. This was a whole amazing experience. So if you have a chance to go out at night under the full moon,
that's great.
You'll have a blast.
I'll bear that in mind. I do keep track of the moon. I must say, this morning when I got up, it was a glorious part moon just outside of my door. I was up about 5:30. So it was just starting to the dawn was just starting to come up. The birds were already, but there was the moon.
It's really fun talking with you about these things, and I thought we were going to talk more about music and other things, but you know what? I love seeing where a conversation's going to go, and really, this is a nice chat to have a cup of tea with you and get to know you a little bit, and you're a delightful person, and your music is so textured and rich and covers so much ground. Now I can't wait for the next installment in the story of the Celts.
Yes. I hope I can get to that sooner than later.
I know that you're touring right now behind this new album, Lost Souls, which is really lovely. And hearing that these were pieces that you had already written and that you brought them to the present, it made sense because they sound, a lot of them, like your other records. And I thought, well, that sounds a lot like that one. And lo and behold, it is from that one. So that's wonderful.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me and for sharing a bit of your morning and your experience and who you are.
And with you. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you, Loreena McKennitt, for talking with me, for being on Paradigms. I really enjoyed our conversation, and it's always nice to be a little surprised, and I really didn't know what to expect. I thought we might talk about the music, and inspiration. But it was great to hear what Loreena is thinking about some of what we're dealing with in modern life and the role that technology is playing and how it's affecting us. It's good stuff to think about. Remember, not too long ago, the idea of a touch screen didn't even exist. And all the radio waves and microwaves that our devices put out affect us. We don't really know how. It's like a big experiment that we're doing on ourselves. So thank you, Loreena, for your awareness about that. And please do check out Loreena McKennitt's website, LoreenaMcKennitt.com, LoreenaMcKennitt.com, and check out her new CD, Lost Souls. I think you'll enjoy it very much. This episode of Paradigms is archived, as all episodes are, at the Paradigms website, paradigms.life, and in iTunes under podcasts, so you can listen to it again, share it with a friend. We'll be back next time with more inspiring people on Paradigms. Until then, have a great week. Take care of yourself. Be good to yourself and those around you. I'm going to leave you with the title track from Loreena McKennitt's new CD, Lost Souls. Enjoy the music. Baruch signing off for Paradigms. We'll see you next time. Have a great week. Be well and be kind.
Is over, another's just begun. Beneath the moonlight, or by the warming sun, I seek to hold you in sunshine or rain. Beneath the heavens, I'm coming home. Drifted like ships upon the sea, horizons fading, we lost a destiny. Storm clouds hover, our vanity like pain, which held back the winds that bring us home. In their flight, watch the moon dance on oceans in the night. The trees reach upward to help the birds to fly, and all of the creatures who'll hear them when they cry. Walk the hillside like lost souls in the night, and in the darkness we're searching for the light, and in the morning like freshly fallen dew, much like a moon's breath, I'm coming home to you. just begun. Beneath the moonlight, or by the warming sun. For I remember that if my heart beat true, just like an eagle, I'm coming home to you.
You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.